Nerd Morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy, and today on the Nerd Morning Show, we're going to be talking about Full Moon, which is book number 2 in the Dresden Files series. I absolutely love this series. I think it is just so good, and I really also believe that it just gets better and better every single book. So Full Moon has a bit of foundation from the first book. The first book, we had a wizard versus warlock, and we had a bunch of other things that were going along coinciding with that. This one is a werewolf story. So people who like werewolves, this is a great book for you. And the mythology that is being played with here is probably a little bit different than the werewolf tropes that we see most commonly used. And I think a bit of that is because he takes some different approaches of werewolf myths and he makes them, this is this kind of a werewolf, this is this kind of werewolf, this is this kind of a werewolf. There's like 4 or 5 different types of werewolves that we get to see or talk about in this book, and that's pretty fun. So with this, the story, there is a foundation in the murder mystery as Harry Dresden is called in to go and consult for a case. Now, in this, they find that there have been these different deaths, that they've had some correspondence to a degree in relationship to the moon, and they find that there are these giant paw prints at the locations of the different crimes. And so they are looking at, could there be werewolves that are out here killing people? And that's kind of the starting point from this. In this, we have a lot of the different noir flavors that we had in the first book, but we're getting a little bit more of a murder, crime, buddy cop kind of experience. And it's starting to shift a little bit in its tone. But Karen and Dresden are in the outs in this story, because the way that things ended up at the end of the first book, Karen doesn't trust Harry as much as she did at the beginning. And so there is some issues in relationships and how people interact with one another in this as well. We also have characters that are coming from the FBI. We've got gangsters like Johnny Marcone. We have various cops like Karen, and also a whole bunch of werewolf themed monsters. There are multiple groups, and that's a bit of how the story works. I feel like the story's a little bit more predictable. There's still a lot of moving pieces, but there are so much of this story being linked into more like the whodunit rather than how do all these pieces come together that we had that worked really, really strong in the first book. The pacing of the story is fantastic. It just really continues and moves along, and one thing rolls into the next, which rolls into the next, and so the energy of the story is pretty consistent throughout the book. The characterization, I think that we get some more expanding on Harry as a character. We get a little bit of his background and why he is the way he is. And there are some things like that, but I feel like a lot of the other characters that we interact with, we don't get a lot of character growth. Karen, who is a consistent character in this series, this one, we don't get a ton of character growth from her. We get introduced to a couple of characters that we don't really think of as important now, but they become important later. So the characterization, I think they do some really good things with Dresden, but not everyone has the same attention, and that just wasn't necessarily called for in this story. And that's okay. We get that elsewhere throughout the series. I found that this book was super high energy and was really enjoyable. It's one that I think is a good addition to the Dresden Files series. I don't want to go in too much other details in this, keeping this pretty spoiler free, but it's one that I definitely recommend, and I had a lot of fun reading it. So those are some of my thoughts on Full Moon by Jim Butcher, which is book 2 in the Harry Dresden Files. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you do, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. That helps out a ton. Also, you can check out more stuff that I put out there on my various platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those at Nerd Morning. You can also choose to support me if you would like at www.patreon.com/nerdmorning. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.